Hey, so we're here to talk about student alerts, which are utilized in ctcLink, and just kind of what they're for, how to use them, and in what scenarios you would use them to assist with students. So if you ever feel a little overwhelmed balancing, teaching and trying to support your students, we know faculty are really busy and can't always individually follow up with every single student who is struggling for a variety of different reasons. And so that's kind of why we wanted to utilize student alerts. They allow us to track the data of specific areas of needs for Bates students. So there's categories, like there's each alert kind of addresses a different area of need. And as we use them and faculty utilize them, we will be able to track trends of what kind of areas of need are popping up on which campus, in what programs, and hopefully become more proactive in addressing those needs and helping students. Addressing it can help shape what our new student orientation looks like, because if we see specific areas of need like academic assistance or whatever, just really trying to proactively let students know what resources are available on campus to help with those, what kinds of supports they can get while they're at Bates, that kind of thing. So we're just going to go through and sort of talk about what the alerts are and what you use them. So Hector, I think you're up first.
Yeah, and feel free, it's just the two of you, feel free to stop us whenever if you have a question or anything like that. But the first alert that you can input is a tutor referral. So this is if the student needs that kind of extra help with really anything. So we could sign them up for tutoring through the online tutoring. Excuse me, sorry. So yeah, we would input that if you feel like the student is expressing needs in that aspect.
And we will, at the end of this presentation, first we're going to talk about what the alerts are. We will go over how to input alerts as well. So if you're wondering that, we will go over it later. We just kind of wanted to talk about what the alerts are first. Yeah. Next up, the code is DSS referral. And this is basically if you believe the student would benefit from a referral to disability support services. So we would sort of act like a middleman, connect them to Sarah O'Neill in DSS, who's awesome, and make sure and this really, this is a sensitive one because you don't want to assume any disability, but if you hear kind of buzzwords, if they mention a diagnosis or if they mention something that you think might benefit from some kind of accommodation, it never hurts to connect the student with Sarah. And by doing this student alert, we can kind of provide that warm handoff.
And I also know, sorry if you come back, I also know that it's Sarah, like some students might not really know, and she can actually take a further assessment if the student, could benefit from the disability support services accommodation, or maybe they need to go see Diane with the mental health services, or, she could kind of further assess that. So yeah, it is a little tricky situation. You don't want to assume, but there's also, we all work with a bunch of people on a consistent basis that, we kind of could pick up, okay, something, there needs to be further assistance here.
Yes, and we are always going to handle this as delicately as possible. We're not going to say, your instructor thinks that you have a disability. We're going to be as delicate and sensitive as possible and just try to connect them to the appropriate resource and support.
Exactly. All right, the grade referral. If this is a huge one. This is actually the one that we've actually been getting kind of a lot on as of recently. If the student is missing assignment, if their grades are low, or if they're just overall in danger of not passing, you would submit this referral, and we could connect to them, or we could connect with them and, dive a little bit deeper into why they're maybe missing assignments. There could be a whirlwind of different factors that go into the student, failing a class or becoming in danger of failing a class. We could kind of talk with them a little bit more on the one-on-one side, and, figure out if it's, due to them not having good time management skills, they can't figure out the good ways to study. We could provide that kind of assistance or tips and tricks to kind of make sure that they do succeed and pass at the end of the quarter.
Absolutely. So tech referral, this one is if the student you believe is having a difficulty with their remote learning, if they, have expressed that they don't have access to technology, this is one that we would sort of, depending on what the need looks like, maybe refer them to our library loaner, like laptop loaner assistants, or, connect them connect them to the student IT. Like, again, just if they're struggling with Canvas, just sort of meeting that need and connecting them with the supports that Bates have, because there are a lot. This could even look like helping them fill out, the foundation scholarship so that they have more funds to pay for things like that. So a lot of the alerts are sort of intertwined. But this one specifically is just if a student expresses that they don't know how to get into Canvas, or they don't have a laptop that's reliable at home, and us just sort of being able to assess and assist with what they need.
Absenteeism. So that way, if you would input this if a student is missing class, you could input this if you feel like you don't have the capacity to reach out for the student, or if you want to try to reach the student from both angles, from the teacher's side and the kind of student support side, kind of whatever, you guys see fit. But they're, once again, just like everyone said, a lot of these are tied. This could lead to a whirlwind of different things that might come up during that conversation with the student. This could lead to a student maybe being homeless or food insecure, or they have to work because they need to help support their family, and we could have a further conversation on getting that student the assistance, and then getting them back into class. That way they don't miss any more class or shop time or whatever it is that is needed in that student's program.
Absolutely. Okay, so the last two I'm going to present on because these two are very, in some ways, could be seen as interchangeable, but the basic need one, this one is not so much if a student is this one is if a student is doing well academically, but you have heard, or they've spoken to you, or you've just noticed based on, clues that they are struggling with food insecurity, or they're homeless, they don't have reliable transportation, they need help securing childcare. This is if there's a basic need that you see unmet, you would refer them with the basic need, and we could help connect them. We don't have a magic wand to just solve, magically get them into a furnished apartment with, super affordable rent and, free groceries, but we can connect them to resources that will help sort of bridge gaps in those areas. But this one is if there's a basic need, but academically they're doing fine. The next one, which is personal, is if they are struggling academically and perhaps it's linked to an unmet basic need. So again, there's not really a wrong student alert. If you submit the student alert, we are going to connect with the student and, try to build that relationship and get to the bottom and the root of the issue. So, don't worry so much about selecting the right student alert, because I think regardless, the issue will hopefully be resolved. But this one is if their academic success is being affected by something, that's going on in there.
And just to kind of touch on what Evelyn just said, like this selecting an alert kind of gives us a place to start. It's not like, it's not really, this is what it is and this is the only thing we'll touch on. This is giving us a little bit of a heads up on like, okay, this is how we can, go about helping the student.
Yeah, it's sort of like our initial contact. It's not like we're going to say like, well, I had a personal alert for you, and so I'm not going to help you with tutoring because your alert didn't say tutor. Like, we're going to address all of the needs that present themselves as we connect with that student. So worry less about selecting the right alert, and just know that we will sort of holistically address everything that's happening with that student.
All right. So we now know what all the codes are. So here's how you can actually input them into ctcLink. So once you get into ctcLink, I'm assuming everyone knows how to do that. And then click on one of the little boxes that says Faculty Center. The Faculty Center My Schedule page will show up. You want to verify that you're in the right term and the right institution, because especially if you have worked at multiple institutions, you want to make sure you're inputting an alert for the right one. You select the class roster that is in that the student that you need to put the alert in for. Go ahead, go on to the next one. And then the class roster page will display, so it'll show everyone that's in that class. Then you want to hit the submit alert icon, which is the third column, fourth column over from the left. It's that little button. Go ahead. And then it'll take you to the create a student alert page. You would select the alert that from what we just explained in the drop-down menu. When we picked these alerts, we were able to create whatever alert we wanted. So we drafted, faculty and student services to try to see what our student population needs the most. If you truly feel like if there's something that is missing from these alerts, let us know, and then we could evaluate, and we could potentially add or change up some things. This is completely for our use as an institution. So you would pick the alert from the drop-down menu. You can add comments in there, and then you can also add notes that come to specifically to the responder, which is us, and then either Sarah or Neil or whoever needs to be involved with that. So that way we could kind of further assess and get a better picture of what the student is needing and why you're inputting this alert. Then you can also
the comments are so helpful. If you input if you don't click the include student comments in student notification, the student won't see it. It's really helpful if comments are input for us, because then we know maybe what you've already tried to connect with the student, or if you haven't been able to at all. Comments can be really helpful just in terms of putting us at a jumping off point.
And then also too, with adding more detailed comments, we don't have to follow back up with you. The whole point of this system is so that we take something off of faculty, off of other people's like caseload and mental bandwidth. So the more information you could provide for us, the better we could help the student and not have to double back and reach out to whoever submitted the alert. And then just like Evelyn said, you can include the student on that you submitted alert and what you said. I'm not sure exactly what it looks like on the student end, but so I'm not sure if the notes to the responder they see. I would doubt that they wouldn't, but they would see the comment section for sure. So if you do decide to use it at your own discretion, and feel free to put whatever information that you want in those two sections. You can also add multiple alerts. So all you do is click the little plus button on the top right hand side of the box there, and then you can add a second alert for that student. So that way you don't have to do one submission, and you kind of can kill two birds with one stone. And you just repeat the same process. Select go to the drop down menu, add your comments, and then decide if you want the student to get notified or not. A confirmation will display in the faculty center, so that way it's been submitted. Select the add button if you want it. That's really don't really need to do much else after that. So that way you got that information on your records. When we do actually go through the alerts, we will set the status as either completed or pending, depending on where we're at with that student and the alert. If we try to reach out, but we saw the alert and we've tried to reach out, but we haven't been able to get a hold of the student, we will leave it in the pending status, and you will get that notification. But then if we have and we completed it and we created, a plan of action, then it will be a completed status, and you will get that email directed to you. And then feel free to follow up with whatever you need. What's up, Mike?
You might have mentioned this, but is filing an alert something that you can do without notifying the student or without permission, or should you do it that way?
Yeah, if you don't click that little box that says include comments, the alerts only go to the retention team. So we're the only people who see that unless you check that you want the student to be notified.
Yeah. You want to flip back a page, Evelyn? Yeah, so if you see right there in the pink box, include comment. So if it's checked off, then that will be that means that the student will get notice of that you submitted an alert and the comments that are
Yeah, because
attached to that alert.
when we set up, sorry to cut you off, Hector, when
That's fine.
we set up student alerts, because it's an existing system in ctcLink, but we kind of catered it to Bates. We did not put notifying the student of the alert. We set it so that it would not do that, so that instructors could feel safe to sort of refer students for sensitive issues without worrying that the student might be, offended or,
How would you, my question then would be, if you contact the student and they were to ask you, well, why are you getting in touch with me what caused this? What brought this about? What would you say?
When that has come up, I kind of always frame it as like a check-in, just be like, hey, I check in with every student. Is literally the first thing I say on the phone call is like, hey, I try to check in with every student, just to see how you're doing in class and all that. And then the student isn't really saying much or isn't really, giving in much information, and just be like, hey, I would like to check in about, math 92 or, English, whatever, or welding, and then I flat out say, hey, like, your instructor told us that, you could use a little bit more assistance or a little bit more help, and I'm here to help you. And I try to reassure the student that, like, this isn't anything negative. This is more for them to be successful and to get the support that they need. And if anything, we want to make sure that the student succeeds. So we don't, all three of us really have or try to, fit it to where the student doesn't feel like they're being like attacked or reprimanded or disciplined. We want to make sure that they get the most out of it. And, unfortunately, some students don't really take it and run with it, and some do. And that's just kind of that's on the student on that point.
Yeah, I think overwhelmingly when it's been student alerts, or even before we had those, when instructors were just emailing us, overwhelmingly the student has shared with the instructor the need, and the instructors for what they've communicated to me have told the student exactly what you're saying. Hey, there's a team of people who are here to sort of support you and provide these resources. Can I do this warm handoff? Overwhelmingly, from what I've experienced, the student is aware that there's a level of that info being shared, or they're, saying, the instructor saying, you should go tell what you're saying to me to the retention specialist, and they'll walk them to me, or they'll give them, my business card. So I think informally that's sort of happening, but it's something for us to keep in mind, Mike, as we present these and talk about the student alerts, is just sort of making sure people are sensitive to what they're sharing. I think that's a good point.
I agree. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that.
For sure.
I want to be respectful of time. We have 1 minute until we're supposed to, we told Tim we'd finish at 11:58. But I've made a note that we want this to be accessible to as many staff and faculty as we can. And that's something that we will sort of address. And everyone who's in this meeting currently, we will follow up with as next steps for that are taken. Does that work for everyone?
That would be amazing.
Good idea.
Perfect. Are there
We can
any
go
other
a little bit
questions
over
before-
if anybody has any other questions.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you to the library staff
Yeah.
for tuning in and asking such lovely questions and providing feedback.
We've got your back.
Thank you.
No,
We
we
will
appreciate
follow
it.
up, but yeah, we'll follow up on those next steps. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Same to you.
Thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.